Great, lovely. Do I have your permission to use this for teaching, learning and research, maybe?
Sure, no
That's
problem.
fantastic. Thank you so much. Right. Tell me about this case. What is it that you'd planned? Because you've got this sent back from the lab now, haven't you?
Yes, so this is a 57 years old Chinese male patient, and in the past I have done RCT on him. I've given him a crown, and now I'm moving on to the rehabilitative phase, which is I'm planning to use a fixed RBB to replace his missing 4.2 and 4.4. And so this is my design. This is my diagnostic workshop.
Yeah.
You can see that I'm using a canine as the abutment because I want like larger surface area to support teeth, and also I'm using the 4.5 as the abutment for 4.4. I'm doing two different cantilever, two separate cantilever.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. And then so this one here, this one was this is relatively straightforwards. I'm just wondering, that one comes on and off quite easily, and so that wasn't the one that was concerning me. And then you've got some wraparound there. Oh, and you've even done a little bit of coverage of the metalwork just to kind of reduce the amount, although that's chipped a little bit there, isn't it? But anyway, so that's a reasonable idea to hide that. So that's an interesting thing to try, but they might just need to put some more opacious ceramic on there, just where that little chip has happened. But then it was this one here that I remember being interesting, in that one of the things was that I found that was when I tried to remove this, I had difficulty removing it, and then I seem to remember that what I did was that I thought, now why is that difficult to move off? Is it because that's holding it in place, or is there something wrong here? So then if you remember, I took this apart like this, and then I looked at this here, and then what I tried to do was remove it, and I noticed that it didn't come off that easily, didn't it? So why do you think that is? What's happened?
I believe there will be undercut.
Okay. And so where is the undercut? So now we see, well, it depends. I wonder whether you can go, well, I see, does it come out that way? So that's interesting, isn't it? So I've just realised that maybe there's a funny path of insertion here. You've got a swing lock, you've got a rotational path of insertion for your fixed prosthodontics as opposed to your, and I'm not sure whether that might still work. I've just realised that. So we've got some tightness there. And so when we look at this here, we've got to work out, is there some undercut? Do you happen to have one of those little pencil leads? Let me see. I've got one. Just give me 1 second to get that out of my drawer, because I've got one here. So let's just put that back on and just see whether if we identify the there's maybe a little bit of undercut here like that, so that's touching there, and then if that comes around there, so yeah, on that path of insertion there is some possible, or there is some undercut, so that means it's narrower down here than it is higher up. And you can see that that's kind of diverging there, so you followed the contour of the tooth when you did that prep. However, the technician has somehow managed to get this to fit using a kind of like rotational path of insertion. Now I don't know whether that will work clinically, so you might have to see whether you take that to the chair side and see if that works, or you're going to have to trim these areas in here on the framework, because I think you've got some undercut around there and possibly around there as well, like that. So that might mean that we've got to do some trimming from this region here and maybe from over there as well. Do you know how you would identify where you had undercut?
Not
if you were trying on the framework? Do you know what technique you can use to identify undercut? Do you know how you identify that? Occlude, yeah, that's right. You'd use some occlude spray. So you'd spray on the occlude spray, you'd dry the tooth, and then you would seat this down, and then you would see where the occlude spray had been worn off, you would see the metal underneath. So then it means you would adjust it that way. So that's one way of doing it. But then what was interesting was when I started looking at this framework and the way the framework was fitting the abutments, was when I looked at that there, I noticed something, hang on, that doesn't look right. There's something odd there because of my eager beaver eye and what I know I should be looking for. Okay, so that's got the rotational path of insertion like that. And so in fact, when I started looking at that, I noticed that there was something funny about the contact point. So when I'm taking this off, I don't know whether it's the contact point there that's making this difficult or the framework here that's making it difficult. And so in fact, I looked at that, and then what do you see there that looks odd? Oops. Well, when you look at this here, you can see there seems to be a very odd bit of tooth prep, and you mentioned that you did do a little bit of tooth prep over here, didn't you?
Yes.
To make the pontic space
a little bit wider.
A little bit wider.
But not in this way.
But not in that way. And in fact, when you look at that there, that looks odd, not rounded. But not only that, when you look at the area in between, you can see that that is rough. So that part of that has been trimmed there is rough. So that, to me, I thought that's fractured. And so then I asked you to pour another one, and that fractured. But then we were able to get the technician to do it again, and you can see, I think, quite clearly now that we've got a fracture happening on that there. So what does that now mean when we try and reseat this on the die?
It will not fit?
It will not fit. Yeah, because let's see. So when you try and put this in here, it's simply not going to fit. But is there a way that we could get it to fit?
We can trim the contact.
So which contact? The contact on here or the contact on there?
Trim the